go ahead and call this meeting to order. The chair notes there is a quorum present and we will do the flag salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move into 2.0, which is additions and revisions to the agenda. Commissioners, I had one that Delaney emailed you guys last night regarding a request from the Condon School District for additional rock to finish the grade school project. So that was sent out to you. For folks who are curious about that, we will post the briefing on the website, but this was yesterday afternoon request before we finally got all the information we needed. So I would just like to add that under 6.5 new business. Any other additions or revisions?
I don't have any.
Nope.
Okay, let's move on to correspondence and public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair, give your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. For those who are signing in via Zoom, if you dialed in, it's *6 to unmute yourself. If you're on your computer, it's in the lower left-hand corner of your Zoom platform. And just as a reminder, we are informal. So as we move through the agenda, if there is an item that you wish to ask questions about or provide input on, the county court generally welcomes that. Any initial public comments? Okay. Under correspondence, we have several things actually. First thing is a letter from David Greiner, serving in his capacity as the chair of the Summit Springs Village Board. Basically just talking about Summit Springs is a recipient of both our operational support grant and our special projects grants. And so this is just providing an update regarding a special projects grant that we funded for a generator at the facility, kind of where they are in that process. Sounds like they are moving forward. I won't read it out loud. For those who are interested in reading it, all of these are always online as part of the court's.
Were they able to get one on time, or is it like an annual?
So we gave them an extended timeline because of this. There was a funding issue and then a contractor issue. It sounds like they have the contractor in place now and have paid the down payment. So hopefully it's coming finally. We also have, speaking of grants, we have a special projects grant program final report from the Condon Child Care that came in. We should be seeing quite a few grant reports actually, since it's the end of the fiscal year. Those should start rolling in. Again, for folks who are interested in this, we require those who receive grants from the county to provide grant reports at the end of the fiscal year. So those are all on the website if you want to see where your public tax dollars are going and how these entities are investing them in the community. That's a good place to start. We also have a second, so there's actually two special projects grant reports, both from the Condon Child Care / now Condon Early Learning Center. Then we received a note of thanks from Clint Lawrence, and I'll just read this one quickly because it's very short. To the county court, I just wanted to properly thank all of you for your generosity of the 8.1% increase. He's talking about the COLA increase that was approved for all staff back in April, I think. It was greatly appreciated. Thanks again. So that will include as part of the record. And then finally, right before we came into the meeting, Michelle Colby forwarded an email that she received from Derek Heiser, who is on both the Planning Commission and the Budget Committee, offering putting in his resignation for both committees. So just wanted to note that, ask the court if there's any objections to us going ahead and recruiting for, in particular, the planning commission, because Michelle's got a lot of planning actions coming up.
His letter doesn't actually say the budget committee. Does it?
Well, it does both the planning and the budget.
Last sentence. The budget committee, we likely would hold off on recruitment until fall when we do the rest, since the budget committee won't meet again until next April. So if there's no objections to that, Gilliam can work with Michelle and getting that advertised. Okay, and that's all I have under correspondence. Let's move on to 4.0, which is the consent agenda. It is another hefty one, as you can see. Questions
Yeah, it
about
took me forever to go through it.
it?
Good Lord.
Did you fall asleep?
Well, and I found the backup for most of the stuff, I think, but I do have a couple questions.
Sure, go for it.
And on the minutes to start with, on the matter of the CSI renewal, this is kind of, I'm not sure what this statement, Anderson also presented cyber insurance coverage for $50,000 or $3,600, which was that $3,600 the premium?
Yes.
Maybe it should state that in the minutes what that is.
Okay.
And then down in the next section on the fellowship sponsorship, it says Ryan DeGroff with Morrow County.
Oregon.
He's from Business Oregon. He was working with Morrow County, I believe is what was in that conversation, correct?
Mhm. Are those the only two?
Yeah, and then the other thing, just in the consent agenda, so I make sure I understand this, where we have, and I did a little research, it's been going on for a long time, but approval of July bills pending review.
Mm-hmm.
And what you explained to us is you review those, so we're approving them pending your review.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yes, both I review them and Nathan reviews them. So there's always two sets of eyes when they go out. I did want to note to commissioners, in case you did not see in your emails, that the maps for both the Zayo lease and the Amiga Morgan amendment
those
went
right
out.
there.
Okay, yeah.
I wasn't sure whether we were talking about the same Zayo that we had talked about prior
Yes.
to until we got the maps, because it really wasn't in the information before.
Yeah,
We were talking about Sheller. It did have an address that I assumed was Sheller.
the southern corner, yes. And I
And
did
then-
have Chet double check that the
The
address
other
is
thing on the
correct.
cultural grants, we've talked about that. I'm a little lost on that stuff.
Yeah, so the Cultural Coalition, and Miranda can speak to this as well. It's the Cultural Coalition that Miranda is reconstituting for us. These are the fiscal 2022 grants that are coming in from the state. And we received one, and then apparently they had more money, and so the amendment is for additional funds.
Okay,
And so
that's-
approving these allows us to take them. The Cultural Coalition actually administers the grant program.
So the amendment, if I remember right, reading the amendment, I thought it started at 6,400 and then was amended to 5,000.
That's an
Yes, that's an
additional
additional.
5,000.
Oh, an
So a
additional
total of
5,000.
11,500 and plus previous years, right, Miranda? You were saying it's
the
close
years we
to,
haven't had
Already,
a
they let us keep, so we already have, I think, I want to say around
I remember that now.
13,000. And then we're gonna get this additional money,
Okay.
and we have to spend it all before December 31st of this year, so.
So those
Hopefully
people need to
everyone's
get
ready to
busy.
rock and roll.
yeah, I think Miranda's gonna help them get their first meeting off the ground and get them going. And then hopefully with an idea that maybe this fall they could be distributing funds like early fall for any events that are coming up.
So, how many people did you finally get on your board?
We have six
Six.
with a potential, somebody
Okay.
just reached out,
Oh, good.
yeah, so we'll see.
Because I was thinking the last time we talked, it was 5, so
Yeah,
that's good.
and we are still short Arlington people, right? Because the one you got was potentially from Condon. So I think we have almost all the slots from Condon full.
If
And we're
this person
short
says
a
yes,
few
then
from
we'll be good on Con, and we'll just need 2 more from Arlington.
From Arlington. So if anybody knows of anybody at the north end who would like to participate, they can still, they have enough to work, they have a quorum. But if it would be great if we could have a full
Yeah.
committee.
Some more
I like,
representation.
we'll need 3 more from Arlington,
Yeah,
3 more.
It's not a heavy lift, guys, just
No,
putting this
no.
out to the public. Couple meetings, you get to distribute some funds to people who are doing good, interesting things in the community. So consider it if you want to look for a volunteer opportunity. Any other questions on the consent agenda?
No,
Okay, so we would be looking at the regular meeting minutes as amended with those two changes that Pat referenced. Is there a motion to approve it?
I move to approve the consent agenda with the corrections to the minutes.
second,
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda with the corrections to the minutes. The consent agenda consists of consider approval of June 15th, 2022 regular meeting minutes as amended. Consider approval of July bills pending review. Consider approval of ODOT Public Transportation Division Grant Agreement number 35351. Consider approval of CAPECO Services Agreement for Gilliam County Meal Sites. Consider approval of HB 5202 General Fund Grant Agreement for Gilliam County Fair. Consider approval of fiscal year 2022 Cultural Participation Grant Agreement using fiscal sponsors. Consider approval of amendment to fiscal year 2022 Cultural Participation Grant Agreement using fiscal sponsors. Consider approval of telecommunications equipment and HUT's ground lease agreement with Zayo Group. Consider approval of amendment number 1 to industrial ground lease with Omega Morgan, and consider approval of revised public transportation coordinator position description. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So I think the 303 number is probably Zayo. Patrick, just wanted to let you know that it's approved, and so we will get you a signed copy of the lease. Probably we have a afternoon work session, so maybe realistically tomorrow or later.
Okay, yeah, that's great. We did have one question, and obviously it's a little late for that, but this was regard to some of the comments or the edits that y'all made on the lease. Everything seemed just fine, but we did have some of our operations folks were wondering with the addition of your language to enter the site for utility, any kind of utility work and whatever you would need to do. There was a question of, do you know of any existing utilities that do run across that acre that we've proposed to lease?
I don't believe there are any. The legal counsel just thought it would be prudent to have it in there should there ever be,
Sure.
I don't know, like a line or something that goes through there, I think.
Okay, yeah, and I think we were fine with the language, but we just wanted to know if, we were inadvertently going to be sitting on top of a water main or something. It's like, well, we'd like to know that now.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. Okay, well, wonderful. I appreciate that. Right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Dry.
Okay, thanks so much.
Let's move on to 5.1, which is cyber coverage options update. We have John Anderson here, and I'll just kick this off by saying, this has been a wild ride on our cyber coverage. First, we thought we were going to have all kinds of hoops we needed to jump through, and then suddenly, right before the fiscal year, we got an email from CIS saying, basically, never mind. John, do you want to walk us through current status, what we're looking at, our options, and all that kind of stuff?
So best guess, and I can say from our end, there was a lot of pushback on the CIS from members about the extent of the requirements to get this coverage, right? So I think that's why it was changed in the 11th hour, would be my best guess. Where we're at now is we're into the new policy cycle, and we did secure the $50,000 that we discussed at the last meeting. With that was an application that you guys completed to access the other tiers. So now we do have access to the other tiers. We have options, which I'll discuss for you, and you guys can make a decision if you want to bump up above that 50,000. So, and what they did back down was the requirements. So they had this extensive list of requirements that's no longer being required. There still are some requirements. They're just not as demanding. Okay, so if you want to go, and there's tiers to this, so I did the math for you, so I'm going to give you the all-in price with the tiers added up. So $50,000 where we're at now, $3,600. We want to go to $250,000 in coverage, it's going to be $5,100. If you want to go to $500,000 in coverage, premium is $6,600. If you want to go to 1 million in coverage, it is $7,900.
And can you,
More than
So for reference,
yeah,
prior to, you were paying about $3,600 for 1 million last year.
That's a little more than double.
but still, far beneath what it would cost us if we actually had
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Exactly.
So
No
again,
question.
this is the hot one
Yeah.
in our world.
What are the requirements on the million?
They are multi-factor authentication for remote access into networks,
Mm.
3 backup copies, 2 of which are kept off-site. You keep $250,000 of crime coverage, you satisfy that. There'll be some training for staff about phishing and cybersecurity best practices,
Mhm.
and adopt a cybersecurity policy. I believe you guys have already done that. We had to do that a
Last
year
year.
or 2 ago. So,
Mhm.
So you would have some expense in your first couple of requirements, probably.
there'll be some time requirements.
Yeah, the
Percent.
multi-factor authentication that we are testing, you guys saw the email and the pushback from staff yesterday. So the 3 of us, Miranda, Delaney, and I are testing it right now. It's actually through Microsoft. It's their authentication that we're turning on. So I don't know that there's a substantial cost to it. I think it's probably part of our package. But we are experiencing some kinks in our operating system this morning. So we are just doing a little test run to see if we can figure out what's going on with it. So that would be the only hiccup, but I think it would be prudent for the court to move forward and let the tech people figure out how to meet the authentication stuff. And if we need to revisit what that looks like, it might look different. For instance, new iPhones have dual authentication built into them. So we may, if we're not able to do it from a program, we may be able to work with staff who have iPhones to turn it on their iPhone instead. So we may have some options if this continues to make it so that our email is not working, which is what's been happening today.
So my opinion is that if we're paying $3,600 for only $50,000, why wouldn't we pay $7,900
Right.
for $1 million?
Exactly.
Mhm. And reality
We need
is,
that.
when somebody gets a hold of our computer system, like the cost would be far greater
Yes.
than what this $4,000 difference in premium.
Oh,
And this is gonna continue, right? This is gonna be at the forefront of insurance as we continue to use computers and our everyday lives. This is gonna stay at the forefront of being a hot topic.
I will say, just for the record, so just as a reminder to the commissioners, that one of the things that Delaney and Miranda have been working on is getting a lot of our documents uploaded to the Oregon Records Management System, which is a system that the state protects.
Cool.
And so I just wanted to note that is, the intent is that will be, in addition to our server backups that are offsite and all those, this is kind of our other fail
So
safe.
do we have server
Place.
backups off-site now?
Yes.
Do we need all that?
I believe so. I think Kelly worked on that last year when we were getting our coverage in place. So I believe
So
so.
where they
And we have
at
to have a
on-site?
second then, right?
It's classified information.
Yeah, right.
No, I don't know. I'd have to ask Kelly where they're actually located.
We tell you, we'll have to kill you.
Yeah, but my hope is that the ORMS system as well will store, we're planning on uploading all of our contracts and things like that, not only because the public will hopefully in the long run be able to see them through that portal, but also as a sort of double backup to make sure all of our documents are stored in a place where we can find them again.
Yeah.
And the state
my
tech
pictures in the
people
cloud, I
can
can-
protect them, yeah. So any other questions for John regarding the cyber coverage?
No,
Does it sound like the $7,900, the $1 million coverage?
I think it's a no-brainer.
Yes.
Okay, so
What do we need to do?
I think we would need a motion. I can make the motion if you'd like. I would move to purchase the $1 million coverage for our cybersecurity in the amount of $7,900 for the premium.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded that we purchase the $1 million coverage for our cybersecurity with the premium of $7,900. Is there further discussion?
I would note too that, so we're invoiced at what we've discussed before, the 3,600, so you're gonna get a supplemental invoice from CIS for the
Okay.
difference between that.
For the
79 and 36, so
Okay,
look for that.
perfect. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Glad we're protected. Thank you, CIS, for same reason.
yeah, right. Thanks for listening, CIS, to all the.
Today, for today.
Tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
There you go.
So let's move on to 5.2, which is consider approval of resolution number R 2022-14, adopting a fee schedule for environmental health services. This is just housekeeping, really cleaning up more of our public health process, our transition, which I can talk a little bit more after we look at the resolution. Basically, in order for Umatilla County Public Health to go out and do their environmental health services, they need to know what to charge people for their fees. And so what they have asked is that we just adopt their fee schedule so that they're paying, they don't have to keep track of which county is
Right.
doing what. And so Lori Cooper, our legal counsel, went ahead and drafted the resolution itself, and then Delaney put together the fee schedule based on what Umatilla County is charging. Should be pretty straightforward.
So I do have a question
Yes.
that is around my area of experience. And this looks comparable, and I don't remember exactly what I paid last year on restaurant food service annual fee.
Mm-hmm.
Is this an additional fee for the planning to put in a new one that they're talking about? Because we have not been charged that fee in the past. You go to the plan review. We just pay our annual fee and move on.
I do not know that question.
You might have
What
some
is it you're
businesses.
asking? I'm not sure what
If
you're
you go to
asking.
your plan review,
Yeah, page, oops,
Four.
too far.
just to your plan review.
I went too far. My finger got crazy.
This is an additional charge, full service
Full service
restaurant.
restaurant.
It's got all your different business, so you were gonna do whatever, then there's a charge here, but then you go back up to the first. This is an annual fee
Mhm.
that has all those on
Yeah.
top of it, so that's an additional cost we haven't had before as a business person.
Ooh. Good question.
That is a good question.
You're emailing Umatilla County to confirm. It seems like your interpretation is probably valid, that maybe this is for like a new business opening. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, you do have to do a plan. That's why I think that's what it is. You have to submit a plan that has, it's a fairly detailed plan
Mhm.
that they review before they will.
And then you pay this for your plan review to open a restaurant, and then you pay that for your annual fee.
But you never had to pay this.
You haven't had to pay this previously.
No, and I'm sure Tony didn't when she opened, and I'm sure that Tiffany did when she opened. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I know I never do more than
Right?
non-budget.
Mhm.
We had to have the inspection,
Would
and
you
then after the
guys,
inspection, and I think they said, if I remember, mine was $750 on the last one I did.
and how many
Which
seats
would
do
be,
you have?
be around, I think I'm at the 50 plus.
So comparable, pretty
Yeah.
close. Would you guys like to move through the agenda and see if we can get an answer from Umatilla
Yeah,
County while
let's
we're
do
Let's
talking?
do that.
Okay. let's do that and we'll see if we can get a response back.
It's just, if you got startup businesses,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
cheaper it is
Fee
to
of
get
the-
them to start
Be
up.
be it to death before you even get the door open.
Yeah,
Okay, let's move on to 6.1, discuss revisions to weed control. I'm just gonna make a note to go back to this. Discuss revisions to weed control officer position description. Pat, do you wanna kick us off?
yeah, I guess initially, we probably wanted to start with just a weed officer and we're looking at some things. One of the concerns was supervisory responsibilities as a union member. And I did reach out to Diana and got back an email that I don't think we can even answer this question. Supervisor exclusion from the union membership is pursuant to, and what is PECBA? Collective bargaining, so it's PECBA.
I don't know that.
Pursuant to PCBA, not FLSA, the definition under PECBA regarding supervisory inclusion with my edits for brevity and applicability. Supervising employee means any individual having authority in the interest of the employer to hire, transfer, suspend, lay off, recall, promote, discharge, assign, reward, or discipline other employees or responsibly to direct them or to adjust their grievances or effectively to recommend such action
Mhm.
if in connection with the exercise of authority is not of a merely routine or clerical nature, but requires the use of independent judgment.
Mhm.
And I did ask our weed control officer this morning how much percentage of, or how much supervisory he does, and he said quite a bit. So I
Yeah.
think that's a question that we have
Yeah.
a real gray area in.
Yeah, I mean, in general, the way that we have dealt with this previously with the union is if we have distinguished between lead worker and supervisor. So if the idea is that the elected official is still directing the work of everybody underneath them, then we have designated, and I think that's why the weed control officer up until this point has been considered a weed officer. But for other departments like transportation, for instance, once we started hiring people under transportation, we now have a coordinator, but previously we have had a director. That person came out of the union as soon as they had hiring and firing and disciplinary authority over a union member is how we've treated it. And AFSCME has agreed to that when we have removed people and said that this is the reason why we're pulling them out of the union, is because our expectation is that management, that this particular individual will be responsible on the management side for holding this person accountable, you know, other people from the union. So I think I see kind of where you're going. Depending on how you want to structure this, really what it would look like is basically, because the job description as it's written says that the weed control officer is supervising weed department employees. So if we wanted to keep it that way, and still have them obviously working under the road commissioner, then I think it would just be a matter of reclassifying them as a management position and saying that they are no longer part of the bargaining unit. And then you can decide whether you want to do overtime exempt or not. Some of our management positions, I'm thinking the road department specifically, our roadmaster is overtime exempt. Our rock crusher foreman is not. So we have it both ways. There's precedence to do either way.
And I get that, and I want to hear from Don a little bit too, but at this point, we've had some discussions, and I haven't really delved into the weed department in detail, which is, I'm getting into it more now, the first year and a half. There's a lot of stuff I need to learn about the weed department in general. But the constant communications is the grants aren't available, we can't do as much, and so do we really need 2 employees? And that's where it started. I don't think we need to go back with 2 employees right now. Maybe we will grow to that, but I don't think we need the 2 right now. And then just the daily supervision of that employee is hard for the commissioner, or, 20% or 25%, whatever, will do the daily supervision of what's going on. Don and I talked a little bit this morning, and his concern was with history, that then the weed guy ends up in the truck all the time. That should be something that commissioner controls if that's going on. But I just felt like the daily supervision is something that I would be more comfortable with. At least starting out as we move forward, this is all new. As we move forward, I've got a lot of questions and about a lot of things that I can't answer today. But it'll give me a starting point, and then if we need to do some changes and adjustments down the road after I know that more, I would say this is what I would like to do. And Don, you want to give your input?
Well, quite frankly, every time we've moved the weed officer underneath the road department, again, he already said it, you end up in a truck or you end up in a snowplow. You can't do the job you're required to do, is what happens. And I've only saw it happen 3 times, but it's been consistent and it's always happened in those 3 times. So I see if you don't just make him a standalone person, that you're going to run into the same problems over and over and over again. We've repeated it 3 times. We want to do it 4 times.
Yeah, I think that the concern you have is how much hands-on actual stuff is the commissioner doing. County commissioner in that role, because
Yeah.
as an elected official, that can change drastically, in my experience, from commissioner to commissioner.
I mean, I think my concern in looking at this, though, is the roadmaster any more equipped to supervise the weed control officer? I mean, the idea is Dewey's out with his crews doing other stuff, and usually the road and weed guys have different schedules. Their busy times are the same times usually. So I'm not sure that Dewey's going to be able to provide any more supervision than a commissioner would be able to. And I do worry about this getting absorbed in and folks thinking that the weed department is only about the roads, when quite a bit of the work that we do in the weed department is for BLM, it's for, other things that I'm not sure the roadmaster has enough experience in to even know whether the weed master or weed control officer is doing what they should be doing. I mean, my hope is that we recruit somebody into this position who has some experience, that we recruit based on them being able to be self-sufficient, if that's the idea. And I also wonder if putting them under the roadmaster will impact our ability to recruit somebody into the position. I don't know, but I would have concerns about folks feeling like it's not really a weed position, that this is really just another road
Do you have
department.
any trouble with the other changes in the job description?
I do not, because really we're just talking about,
They're moving the supervision and making that cleaner.
right.
And just adding some things that bookkeeping.
I mean, I don't have a problem leaving it under the supervision of the road commissioner. That really gets down to management from the commissioner and some better communications, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the question now. Okay. Because this has to be an open recruitment, the number 2 position is currently filled, right? Under the union contract, if this is in, if this remains in the bargaining unit and the individual who's in the number 2 position applies and there are no, and assuming all other things being
Is there
equal.
preference points in that? Is that how that works?
So if you have two candidates, one external and one internal, and they score the same, then the union member by the contract should be appointed into it.
So if you post internally, do you ever have to post externally?
Yes. Yes, what we do is the union contract basically gives the union members a 7-day head start. So we post internally for 7 days, then it's posted publicly.
And so they both, so then you got your pool of applicants.
Correct. Unless the court's decision is to eliminate the number 2 position as part of this conversation, in which case the union would probably, like what we did with Kelly, for instance, when we moved her over into Chet's office, when we eliminated her position, we did a direct appointment to avoid laying off an existing Gilliam County member. So if the intention of the court is to eliminate the number 2 position, the cleanest way to do this would not be a recruitment. It would be to appoint Doug Potter directly into the position with the understanding there's not going to be a number 2 position. And so in order to avoid laying him off, that would be what we would just promote him into the position.
I don't do that one.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's more complicated
Higher the
because,
position and then I don't get why that would be.
It's the union.
yeah,
So they don't let you eliminate a position unless you appoint.
no, but I'm saying if we eliminate a position, we are basically saying as this court that we are laying somebody off. Unless the assumption is that he is going to be taking this weed control
So
officer
if you
role.
hired somebody else,
If
get
you
I
hire
get the-
somebody else and are eliminating the number 2 position, you're basically saying that we're laying off the incumbent in that number 2 position. So that's why my question is, if the intention is to eliminate the number 2,
following it up.
almost by default, you would need, unless you intend to lay off the incumbent in the number 2 position.
Or do you leave the number 2 position just unfilled?
Yeah,
And then if you decided later that you needed to fill it, then it's
right.
without eliminating.
But if we were doing that, my suggestion would be that you would actually retain the supervision language in here. Because it doesn't, there's nobody, if you hire into the number 1 position and you leave the number 2, there's nobody to supervise. So it becomes a moot point on whether the supervision is in here or not. That would be subject to you filling the number 2. But you'd have the flexibility if you decided.
Your drop dead date's the 15th of August.
Yeah, you better have one, because he'll just keep stringing you.
Could be tomorrow.
There you go.
Depends on how the conversation is.
Well, I have a lot of vacation to use up too. So, I have to get rid of that as well.
But it's a lot.
I don't know, 20, 30 days, something like that.
So
For the rest of the
the
time.
rest of the year. You're kind of there.
Yeah,
You're pretty much
he's
there.
pretty much
Yeah.
that.
What, could I make a suggestion that rather than tinker with this, what if we advertised and recruited, figure out who you want in your number 1 and whether that means you're keeping the number 2 or not. And then we adjust the position description on the supervisory stuff based on who's in the position. Because if it's somebody who's been here forever and ever and they are pretty self-sufficient, maybe that changes how the supervision looks and whether you need a number 2. If you've got a newbie coming in that's learning the ropes, maybe you approach that differently.
Well, I don't think we want to do anything today anyway. I've
Yeah.
got some questions that I need to ask.
The one thing that's tough on this job is that you have to know everything. I mean, you have to know where every little creek is, everything that's going on. It's not just roads. Quite simply, roads are probably a quarter of what we do.
Yeah, well, and I get that. I would say that might even be too high a percentage.
Yeah.
When you're looking at
Well,
acreage.
you gotta count state highways as well, so.
Yeah.
It's not just the county it's a safe idea.
But I'm thinking like, in order to not hold up the recruitment process, I mean, we've done this on the transportation side where we advertise it and then based on who Sherry ends up hiring, we alter the reporting structure to fit with the individuals we have, and that's not uncommon. So if you had a situation where you end up with maintaining a department of 2 and we need to adjust this by either pulling it out of the union.
I think the hard part for me at this point is, do we really need 2 based on everything slowing down in the weed department? What do you say to that?
Yes. Me too. There's no way you can do the job sometimes without it.
Give me some detail.
Okay, we have a truck that's running 24 hours a day sometimes, on the highways because of the wind in Gilliam County kind of dictates when you can work and when you can't. So you have one driver in there and that's his sole job and there's nobody taking care of the landowners. He doesn't have time. So you're gonna
So
have,
basically, it's good weather days. And then,
Sort of a feast or famine, right?
and
So
then-
like,
and then when there's bad weather days, we got what?
we generally have enough paperwork to keep us in the office if we're, things like that come up. Also, the contracts need to be followed. We just don't, I mean, we have the BLM contract. I think it's got 1 more year on it. Who else do we have? Well, we have a lot that are smaller, you know, that they come in and they talk to us about. BLM has been our chief source here lately because we get the job done with it.
I think though I don't know, I don't think it's in the weed control officer, but maybe in the number, no, it is. I think the other thing that we have traditionally done is used the weed control guys to help alleviate the crunch when it snows. So they help, it's 2 additional guys who can get into vehicles and remove snow when Dewey's got guys trying to take
Yeah, I
vacation
think that's
and
part of
burn
maybe some
through.
conflict, and I think there's been some conflict in whether is paperwork more important or getting in a snowplow at that point.
Yeah.
Well, what we usually do in that time, if it's a big snowstorm, I'm usually running around taking blades and things to people or even going out and helping pull somebody out. And they put Doug in a plow.
So, you said,
Is that
We've
in
talked
here
about a
under
lot.
other duties as
oh, yeah,
assigned?
yeah, it's under both their jobs.
Yeah, it's in both of theirs.
So can I add something too?
Sure.
The city uses the Gilliam County Weed Department to do our golf course and I think out by the lagoon, or just the golf course.
Just the golf course now.
And the reason we do that is because you cannot hire someone to do a golf course spraying anymore. So that service to the city, we can't find anyone else to do it. So
Have you done China Creek?
We haven't been asked.
I don't know what they do at spraying, but our spraying is inland used to be able to do it and then they can't.
Well, they've got a ton of labor on the China Creek city employees. They got quite a bit, so.
You started
Although I
asking
have looked at some of the problems.
You said,
Earlier on.
we could advertise this as not a union position, not as a, is that what you said?
So it can, if we decide that this is a management position, then that is that they are supervising a union employee, which would be the number 2 in this case. Then we would modify the position description to say that this is non-represented. And I would go to the union and tell them that the court has reclassified this position as management because the intention is for them to supervise a union represented employee.
Yeah, I really think that's the biggest concern I've got, because I do think, and like Don said this morning, a lot, that how does that second person do anything without the daily direction of what they're gonna be doing?
Right. But we would only be able to move them out and advertise them in that way if the intention is to keep 2 positions in the department. So I can't go to the union and say, there might be 1, there might be 2. So this is why I'm thinking like it's probably beneficial to recruit, to figure out what your staffing is, and
Yeah,
then
I
to
think-
make the adjustment Because if you end up with 2, then yes, the weed control officer can come out if the intention is that they are being treated as management to do,
Then we can pull
yes.
that. Let's do that.
Okay, so what I'm thinking next steps would be is that Miranda can maybe work with you to get this advertised, to see who your pool looks like. I mean, the other thing is we may run into a situation where, say, the number 2, just hypothetically, gets appointed up into the number 1 position. We may not be able to find somebody who can do the number 2, honestly, because there's a CDL requirement. There's all kinds of things that are specific to the position that would be hard to find in good recruiting times.
Oh, yeah.
And this is not a good recruiting time.
And
So,
absolutely hard to find a body period without putting requirements on it.
yeah. So what I'm thinking, if
Tell me
you're,
about it, I have to drive a truck. Because we
Yeah.
can't find anybody to drive.
Leah's gonna be out there spraying weeds. So what I'm thinking in terms of next steps is, if this is okay with you, Pat,
Yeah.
Miranda can get started on the recruitment. You can take a look at who your candidate pool is, what that looks like, maybe get the appointment of the lead officer, and then evaluate at that point if it's
Okay,
number
I'm
2 that you're
good with that.
recruiting or that. Okay. And then if we need to, it's easy to bring it back on the agenda and fix the reporting itself. That's an easy fix. But it would be helpful to know who's going to actually be
Yeah.
holding
Yeah, I'm good
the
with that.
positions. Okay. Okay, so we will table this until we know who the personnel are. And then
Except
we'll,
we can start recruiting.
correct, yes.
Under your current job description.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger issue, to get the recruiting started.
Big shoes.
Since we don't have a weed officer anymore.
He's on vacation.
He's on
I
vacation.
said I would help.
They'll call you
So-
between the hours of and, right?
You know, I'm used to working with farmers. They don't care what time.
They don't care what time.
My entire life growing up, 5:30.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, who's up at this hour? No one I know.
Oh, no. Wait a
Um,
minute.
definitely not me, that's for sure.
We used to go to work at 6 a.m. every day.
So Delaney has a response back from Umatilla County. So if you guys are okay, I'd like to go back to resolution number R 2022-14.
Okay.
And what does Umatilla County
So
say?
he says this is a one-time fee that includes a full review of facilities and the processes for food service. Every restaurant is required to go through a plan review before they can obtain a license to operate. So I think it is a fee for what you were referring to earlier before they can
Okay,
get
all
there.
I'm saying, it's an additional fee that hasn't been paid by Gilliam County businesses under North Central Public Health.
And I would not be able to corroborate that because I do not know what the fees were after North Central Public Health.
Yeah, me either.
All I can tell you, and I don't have anything that I could access that would,
We don't have those fee schedules either.
well, about the only, I used to go back to my annual fee, because that's all I was. Now, what they did do in North Central is, no matter what time of the year you open your business, you gotta charge the full annual fee.
Oh, really? Even if you open in November?
Which I opened the deli up at the golf course in September, October. Charged the full fee.
They don't prorate.
So that would be my next question. Is there do they prorate their annual fee depending on what time of the year? The only concern I got is added expense to start a business.
I mean, I guess
hear
what I
your
would,
concern.
I hear that. I guess what I would say is, could our small business grant that we're running through the chamber not pick up the cost if somebody feels this is cost prohibitive?
I would think that would be a good,
And then that way we're able to
Something like
still put this in place, but for folks who are like, nah, this is too much.
the one thing I would like to
Remind them
find out
there's
though,
grant.
Delaney, is if they prorate the annual fee depending on what time of the year you open. Just for my own information. And we can move forward with this. the way
So
it
you're
is.
talking like a temporary restaurant, do they?
No, if
No.
it's a full-time restaurant, you open in August, and it's prorate your annual fee from August to December, or they charge you full year.
So I remember when there was a business in Condon that was trying to get a food license. And they wanted to open up the 1st of December, but then they found out the fee, $500 or whatever it was they had to pay that. And then as soon as January rolled around, they would have to pay it again.
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
Yeah.
So that would make up
But
the
your
difference
fee-
in what we were paying before.
But your
It's already
fee
there.
should be good for the whole year, right? Once you pay it, doesn't matter whether or not it goes to you.
But it starts, they start it on the calendar year, every year. That's the fee for that
No
year,
matter.
no
when you
matter
start.
when you open.
So regardless of Umatilla County stop stepping in now, if everybody that was licensed prior is licensed for the whole year.
Right,
Yeah, they have a license.
Just trying to get that
yes.
straight in my head.
Yeah, we don't,
You have a
where there's no new license fee for existing businesses because the fiscal year doesn't match the licensing calendar year.
Yeah.
So we'll get an answer.
Hopefully, he responded really quickly last time, so.
But yeah, I think, I mean, this is what they do up there. I'm sure they're not gonna want to change it.
No,
Mhm.
no, they're gonna change it for us.
Yeah, yeah, we're
But
kind of
I'm-
in a,
But I do think it, you know, that, maybe we talk to the chamber and make
Let 'em
sure
know.
they're aware that, and it's not a big fee, but it's $300. When you're trying to open a business, it's
$300 or $400.
Mhm.
tough, so.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll just make a note and have Delaney follow up with Kaylin after this, just to let her know.
And if
But this
it's
is something she
prorated,
might
it's
need
not a
to-
big deal.
Okay.
I don't think it's that big a deal, but if it's not,
Well, that potentially also could be covered. Obviously, if somebody has to
Right.
pay the full freight, then the chamber's grant process could cover that for businesses who are struggling to do that. Other questions or concerns about the resolution?
no.
No.
Do we have a motion on it?
Oh, I suppose.
Maybe.
I move to approve resolution number R 2022-14 as presented.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve resolution number R 2022-14 as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's move on to 6.2, which is consider approval of modification to South Gilliam County Ambulance Service fiscal year 2021-2022 capital projects grant agreement. Delaney, do you want to just do a quick, are you on your
Yeah,
computer? You
no,
wanna
you're
do it?
good. So, yeah, we got an email from Shannon Kopic that as with everything these days, it is taking longer to get things as well as harder to find them. So she is just asking for extended time for them to be able to use those funds to purchase their ambulance. So that hopefully will come soon.
Questions?
No questions or problems here.
Okay, do we have a motion on that one?
I move to amend the fiscal year 2021-2022 capital projects grant award to the South Gilliam County Ambulance Service by extending the grant period to December 31st, 2022, and to authorize the county judge to prepare and execute an amended grant agreement reflecting the same.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded that we amend the fiscal year 2021-2022 capital projects grant award to the South Gilliam County Ambulance Service by extending the grant period to December 31st, 2022, and to authorize the county judge to prepare and execute an amended grant agreement reflecting the same. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to 6.3, consider appointment of local community health partnership committee members. So just as a little bit of background, the LCHP is our local group that provides feedback to Eastern Oregon Coordinated Care Organization, the EOCCO, regarding the services and programs that they provide for Oregon Health Plan users here in Gilliam County. Currently, the committee does not have any members from either of our health districts on it. They are meeting about 6 times per year, and the members serve a 3-year term. In addition, with our brand new Gilliam County Public Health Authority, one of the requirements from OHA is that public health is at that table and participating. And so I went ahead and reached out to the health districts to ask if they had any interest in serving. And so we have letters back from Daleen Wilson, who would be representing both the Gillum County Public Health and South Gillum Health District. And then from Carrie, is it Shadowworth?
Shadowworth.
From North Gillum Health District. And then I am also raising my hand to say that I would be happy to serve as the supervisor of the Public Health Department, just so we have that extra
Who's on that committee now?
So I don't know, how many members does it
representation.
require?
Oh, look at it really fast.
I think there's
There's a lot.
a lot.
So, well, I guess I'm confused that this even exists when we were with, didn't most of the stuff that they're having to report to the Oregon Health Plan, this is the Oregon
OH.
Health Plan.
No, it's Oregon Health Authority.
Oregon,
Oh, for the Oregon Health Plan.
For the Oregon
Yeah.
Health Plan.
there's 12 right now.
And those are just the condon.
So it's a combination of usually agency people. So DHS has people there, Gobi has people there as the part of the EOCCO, Community Counseling Solutions, Lisa Helms sits on it. And then it's been county representation, which you'll see in here. For whatever reason, Amy Nation got appointed to it. That's not really her wheelhouse. So the recommendation would be to remove her from that. I don't think we'll have any objections to dropping one meeting from her. And then Shelley Campbell was serving on it from the public health, so we would remove her, obviously, and put Daleen on. And then Sally Mann had been appointed when she was North District Health Board, but since she is off now, we would replace her with Carrie. And then, yeah, I think that's Teddy staffs it. She does the administration for it in-house. And I think those are basically the membership, really. There's a couple of community members who are actual Oregon Health Plan members as well. So
I've sat in on one of their meetings.
I
Yeah.
think they're going to reduce the amount of meetings that they have.
So
Yeah, that was
meeting
one of the
every other month.
discussions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
and have it more on a need basis of needing to discuss things rather than just have a meeting to have a meeting.
Yeah. Which I think is helpful.
Makes a lot
I
more
was a
sense.
little confused about whether Dalen's interested or not.
Oh.
Yes, her letter was.
I think she's feeling a little, the weight
Overwhelmed right
of
now?
of having running an entire new department, maybe. So any questions or concerns about the appointments?
I don't have any.
No, you answered my questions.
Okay, could I get a motion to approve the appointments?
I move to approve the appointments to the local community health partnership committee as discussed. We don't need to add anything about removing the other people.
No, I think we could just say for the record, Miranda, for the minutes, that we're talking about appointing Daleen, Carrie, and myself effective July 1 through December 31st, 2024. And then removing Amy Nation, Shelley Campbell, and Sally Mann effective July 1, 2022.
I so moved.
Okay, perfect.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to approve the appointments to the local community health partnership committee as we just discussed. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on. 6.4 is discuss landscape design services agreement with Jenna. I'm going to butcher her last name, and the city of Condon. So to give you just a little bit of background, as you know, we demolished the Holland and Sons warehouse, what, 2 years ago, year ago? And we had previously talked about wanting to do something in that space. And I think kind of the last discussion we had was maybe a combination of some electric vehicle parking plus extending the green space behind the library. So maybe that could be a usable for summer reading or just kind of people hanging out in the back. So at the same time, obviously the city is working on its plans for the grade school redevelopment. So Catherine had reached out and said that she had been in touch with U of O, their landscape architecture folks, about whether a student might be able to help us with some plans for that, for the city's project, for the Holland and Sons, and then we also threw in, maybe looking at outside of Ardent Mills to see if
Oh, I
we
thought that was a
can
great-
change
yeah.
the landscape
Yeah.
around there as well.
That'd be good.
So the student has provided an estimate, which is in your packet, and a contract. I think, and Delaney just sent out to you guys right before the meeting, a revised kind of cleaner version.
Okay.
When Catherine and I talked about this, we talked about the city actually being the one that holds the contract with the student and the county providing funding for if we wanted to do like a 50-50 split or how we want to do that, whether the student can track time by project. I don't know if that's a possibility, or a 50-50 split, which it's a small amount. I mean, 3,500 for those two
Yeah.
projects for us is, I thought very reasonable.
3 projects.
Yeah. So Catherine, do you want to add anything?
I think you got it. She did say she could split those out. I'm thinking it's such a small project that we'll wait and see what, since she is a student, I don't think part of the contractual stuff, I've been helping her and sending it to the attorney, so I.
So it went from 3,600,
The total's about 6,500.
okay,
Oh,
For
plus,
4,450 plus 1,260 for design supervisor plus some travel.
yes.
And so then the suggested motion language, I just put a little bit of padding in there
Yeah.
and split it basically, just in case she's off by a little bit, understanding it's a student that is guessing how it's gonna take her.
Right?
But I thought this might be a cool,
Yeah.
cool partnership and maybe a good way to introduce a student here, and who knows, if she's great, maybe we have other projects we can use her for, but thoughts on this or questions?
So we're at a total of 6,460.
Yes. One question I do, just because I made an assumption, but I want to make sure that you guys are on board with this. Are you on board with the idea of doing like green space, extending the park, and then parking kind of in the back part of the
Yeah, I
lot?
think that's what we just before.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I just
And
wanted to make
So that
sure.
that parking is still available if we can get the charging stations for the cars
Yeah,
at
we're
some
also
point down the
looking at the
road.
possibility, maybe tying that to the grade school year too, so
Yeah.
depending on how all that comes out.
Right.
And I
Okay.
think probably what we would do is we would work with her, and we would probably ask Jeff if he could help, Jeff Schott, with the parking piece, the EV piece,
Right.
and making sure that the drainage and all of that is what it
Well, we
needs to
still
be.
need to do that sidewalk, don't we?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be part of the whole project. This would be getting the plan in place, but then we'll have to come back, I think, and actually, obviously implement the plan.
Right.
Oh,
Which we need to do because we've been talking and not doing anything.
I know, and
We
you
need
need
to
that.
stop talking and do something. I hate that.
So is there a motion then? I mean, it's a little amount technically. We
Yeah, it
could probably
is.
do it by consensus, but if you guys are willing to structure it this way, I think we could just do a motion so that it's in the record in case the auditors have any questions about it.
I move to authorize expenditures in the amount of
Up to
up to
3,500.
3,500
In case we
for
have to rush.
landscape design services as discussed.
And I will second.
It's been moved and seconded that we authorize expenditures in the amount of up to $3,500 for landscape design services as discussed. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Catherine, let us know when you sign it. and
Correct.
when she's
Yeah, we're
ready.
doing it tonight.
Cool.
Yay. Okay, we are going on to 6.5, which is a request from the Condon School District for additional rock. I gave you guys, I think, in your packet, you will have the original email from Jeff Schott. But basically, late last week, Jeff reached out and said that the school district is going over what they thought they were going to need for rock to finish the new school district project. And asking if the courts think they've been in touch with Dewey, and Dewey Had some heartburn over it. I think Jeff captured that in his email, but definitely said it would need to go to the court for approval. So in the first email from Jeff is kind of laying out where they are and what more they need. So you can kind of see in there, Delaney put together the suggested motion so they don't have to come back. My suggestion is that we just be vague, that we allow them to use whatever they need, given that school is starting in, 6 weeks. I just don't want them to have to come back and ask for permission or put construction on hold, waiting for us to approve rock. So if you guys are okay with that, that would be my suggestion, is just to approve whatever they need and to have them work with Dewey to make sure that he's aware of how much they're taking.
It sounds to me like the tracking's pretty well been in place.
I-
As far as
Jeff
using.
was able to relay it out well.
Yeah.
But what I didn't completely understand, my conversation with Dewey, was that I thought the original request was for, it was 970 on the gravel and 3/4. He said that has gone to 6,620, and that was like base rock's gone to 620, not to 3/4. So it obviously went up from 3/4 was original 970, then they did another 810, then another almost 2,000. So it's gone up. The base didn't go up that much, but the 3/4 did, which is that was the more expensive.
Yeah, I think the base was primarily for building, and then now they're getting into the paving part, I
I
think.
mean, we don't want to stop the project, obviously, but
No.
this is a pretty good hit to inventory,
Yeah.
so everybody knows, and it cost money to make it. And it was a pretty good hit.
We have as well, I mean, if we are always trying to be mindful if we're authorizing the road department to help with projects, to make sure that we're not draining the road department of being able to actually maintain roads.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if Pat, when you look at this and what the inventory does and what it'll cost to replenish it, if we needed to backfill with, say, economic development dollars, I feel like
We need a place there for it.
that there's a place for it based on
There-
it being a
and I
school
don't know
building. I mean, it's kind of essential community
I mean, I
infrastructure.
don't think this
So,
was targeted for anything in particular, because when I first came to the conversation before I was elected, it says rocks on your name.
yeah,
Yeah.
Kind of where it was at. with
Yeah.
it. So it's not like it was targeted for something else, or we wouldn't have said that at that time, but just, I'm glad he's concerned for his inventory.
Yes.
Okay, so are there any objections or concerns to providing the additional rock?
He mainly wanted to not get in trouble for bunch of rock going out the number.
That's good.
I think it's going to a good cause.
Yeah.
So I want to see it get done. There's a lot of partners who put stuff in around the table, so it would be a shame to have it not get finished in time for the school year because of rock.
Nitpicky. Yeah.
Well, even if you figure.
Between a rock and a hard place.
Base and the total width. Well, you're looking at 10,000, so he says he can make it for $50,000, even if it was 7 or 70,000.
Mhm. No, it's a good amount.
Yeah, what do we need to do to assure Dewey that we're willing to absorb the cost?
So I
From
would
his
say,
Yeah, I could tell. him.
I would say let's make the motion if you guys are okay with that. And then if Pat just wants to circle back with him, I mean, if we needed to move money, we would just need to probably do a supplemental, moving that into the road department's fund, which Nathan and I could work on if that was needed. So you just need to let us know if we need to do that. But we definitely, I think it's appropriate to use economic development funds for it.
I do too. So do we have a motion?
You want me
I
to,
move to approve providing additional rocks upon the grade school project as needed to finish the project.
And I will second.
been moved and seconded that we approve providing the additional rock to the common grade school project as needed to finish the project. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, if you can send an email to Jeff saying, move forward. They were paused,
Keep going.
waiting
Oh,
for
no.
us to.
Yeah. that's
I
okay.
told them I didn't think it would be a problem, but they didn't want to obviously upset us.
So that,
Okay, let's move on to 7.0, which is announcements and next meeting. Next meeting is scheduled for July 20th. That one will be in Arlington at the Ronquest building. I liked our downstairs setup.
That was really nice.
Yeah, so I
Very
think
nice.
for
Thank you,
folks who are
Miranda.
interested, just as a reminder, the county court now has an office in Arlington. And so our next meeting will be there downstairs in our little conference room that Miranda has set up for us. Okay, Sherry, what have you got going on?
Well, let's see, what have I got going on? Of course, this afternoon we have the broadband meeting, and there's another broadband meeting on whatever day that is.
yeah, 12, I think.
It's not in my calendar. Yeah, it's on the 12th.
We got an email. I put it up.
That involves Business Oregon and some other entities, and then AOC has something following that to talk about the same thing. So it's a big topic all over the place right now. And then tomorrow, CIS risk management is going to be here to meet with transportation, and Delaney and I will be there as well. They're just here to see our operation and
Yeah, do a tour of the bus barn
I'm
and
sure your bus barn.
bus barn and the offices and
Yep.
meet everybody.
Good
So,
hopefully not
luck.
charge us a bunch of premium.
right? And then Northport is skipping their July meeting, so we won't be meeting. CAPECO will be meeting. What else did I have? I wrote some things down. Been working with transportation in our open position of a dispatcher. I think we're going to have interviews this coming week, and then we're also advertising for a part-time driver. So if anybody's interested, we need drivers. I think that's all I've got.
All right, Pat, what do you got going on?
I attended a meeting with Jed from the court and Mayor Longington, and engineer, and had a lengthy discussion about water availability for the Mesa potential industrial projects. So a real positive meeting with everybody there, talking positively about what could happen if we do. There's quite a bit of water available and a lot of different options that city needs some help, but a lot of different options to get water where it needs to go once we have some place that has a need. And then to the OAC meeting a week on Monday, and that's really about all that. No more health district meetings for me.
Yay,
then-
scratch that one off.
To quickly circle back to your guys' question earlier, Joseph emailed back that per state statute, licenses issued after October 1st are prorated at 50%, but they still expire December 31st. So it's a state statute that dictates the proration of fees. So if you open in August, you still have to pay the full fee for the year. Proration doesn't start until October 1st.
Yeah, I think I did it in September.
And you still have to pay. Well, it doesn't start till October.
Yeah, so October, so
Yeah.
anything that you open from October to December, you get the 50% proration, otherwise it's the whole fee.
Yeah, I think we just reach out to Kaylin
Yeah, make sure that
Chamber
she's
can help
aware
cover
of
that.
that.
and get a position we can help startups.
Yeah, so that they're aware of it, that's there. It's not holding people back.
Anything else going on for you?
There is prayer meeting next Friday, or this Friday, and I will be at Paloma Judge in the rodeo trying to attend it on
Oh,
my cell phone.
that's fun.
Good luck.
So on my end, we have lots going on, actually, as you might have guessed. So first, good news. We heard from the state that at least one of our permits, water well permits at Shetler Station has been fixed, and we're not going to lose our water rights at Shetler, which was great news.
Yes.
We're still waiting on the second one.
So
That was for the existing well,
Right,
is
and
now figured out.
And then the other one is for the well that we have the rights to, but it
Yes.
has not
Been
been.
drilled.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when we submitted the application for the one who has not been drilled, they found a problem with the existing one. That was going to cause us to lose our our water rights. And so they had us amend some stuff, send in a request to extend an application. Basically, it was just some paperwork, I think, that didn't get done way back when they drilled it. And so not all the conditions of the permit back then had been satisfied with the state. So we have now satisfied them, and they have issued the final permit.
They've put out that they've approved our extension of time to get those requirements done. So now it can go on to the next step. And now the other well can also process can move forward,
Okay.
the other water rights.
So we're waiting to hear on this, the as yet drilled well, but hopefully that will be smooth sailing as well. Now that we have the first one wrapped up.
So where are we? We've talked in the last 3 years that I've been here about getting these contracts and things in some kind of database that's puts out a reminder that they're expiring or that they need to be reviewed. Do we have something in place for that yet?
So the ORMS that we talked, first, let me just say, between the two of them,
Yes.
they have completely revolutionized how we do our documents in-house in like 3 short months. So we are in the process now of going through all of Leanne and Sandy's old files and making sure those all get moved into our new filing system, which I think we're moving towards a completely paperless system. So they're not going to be in Ellen's office anymore. They're going to be, I'm e-signing everything. And then the two of them are working on naming cultures so that all of the files are named the same. They're saved in the same places so that whoever inherits this filing system from us will be able to find whatever they need whenever they need it. But to your point, the ORMS system I was talking about earlier has, I think, capability for them to be able to set some reminders of when it's rolling off and things like that. But that's part of our process that we're kind of digging into.
Great.
But yes, it's a Herculean task that the two of them are undertaking, trying to get 20 years of court files organized, basically is what they're doing. So, and they've made already really good progress.
I'm sure.
We do a lot less of where did that file go? And there's no
Right,
signatures on it
exactly. Yeah.
anymore.
How do I find it? Where would I look for it?
Where's that box?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and it will just get better. We'll be using interns to kind of help us digitize some stuff that was still in paper copy. So it's coming along. Let's see. So that was the first one I wanted to say. Other things that are on my calendar. I did have a discussion with Leah Shannon last week. And one of the topics that came up, because I see Judd's on here, is maybe reconvening the 2 governing boards for the port and the court to talk about what our Plan B project is for the Willow Creek funds.
Okay.
So we may be looking at scheduling a meeting maybe as soon as our next meeting.
Okay.
We could do a work session with them if his board can do that. I don't know, Catherine, what your availability looks like. I forgot you were sitting in the room.
I meet
But
next Thursday, so I don't know.
This is based on the city denying to do anything with it.
correct, yeah. So just, is
Oh,
there
right.
is there
They
a
would let
second
us
project
do
that
our
we would
project.
like to
Okay.
work on together to put those funds toward? Just because it's still hanging out there, and if there's an opportunity even to position us for something down the road, we might as well start moving on it. So anyway,
Maybe get to see you do some of that motel.
yeah,
Yeah, well, they didn't want to work with us on the other thing. Would they want to work with
Yeah.
us on that?
I don't know.
maybe Willow Creek, maybe there's some development there, or
Well,
maybe.
we have a list,
Mesa.
and
I
I
do have a
think we have had three priorities, and it's before Jed came on. And I think Willow Creek, infrastructure at Willow Creek was another one also too. And also maybe working on some infrastructure up at Mesa to make it more developable. So,
And I see Jed just unmuted. Jed, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, my conversations with the developer, I think we'll see some movement on the Mesa here within, he said about 30 days, where, there's still a lot of preliminary steps, understood, but I think it would be prudent to be sure we connect our efforts with the county and city and the port. And if that means a meeting maybe in the August timeframe or something, like Catherine said, we're meeting next Thursday with the port. So maybe just a placeholder to meet jointly with the county would be great.
Would it, do you guys want to wait until August, or would you guys be interested in meeting when we're down in Arlington in 2 weeks? Or is that too soon for pulling?
I think it might be a little early right yet, but I don't want to miss it either. So
how about this, Jed? I will ask Delaney to follow up with you, and maybe you could get a sense from your board of what dates might work, and then Delaney can coordinate with the court members to make sure it works for everybody's schedule. And then we could notice a joint meeting between the two bodies.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Let's see, other things that are going on. So the rocket process,
Oh, yay.
Delaney and I have been doing our pre-meetings. It's going very well. Invites went out to some community partners yesterday, last night. So there'll be approximately 15 people around the table. So far, last week, I spent some time in Arlington meeting with the Arlington childcare and the Arlington preschool. Also met with Janine at the Early Learning Center on Thursday, just to kind of see where they are, what challenges they're facing, just so that we have a good, as we're walking into this process, understand like where their challenges are. Just informationally to keep you guys up to speed, like the feedback that we're getting is the north end. First, let me just say that it's an interesting time because virtually all of our institutions that provide education, whether it's the school districts or the early learning folks, are all going through major transitions in their leadership. So that's a challenge in and of itself, is that we have new superintendents coming on, we have directors who are wanting to leave their current posts, we have all kinds of stuff. So that's a challenge, I think, countywide. The north end, their feedback is, again, mostly it's a financial constraint. I think even the childcare feels like they maybe have some potential people who could step in when Verlene is ready to hand over the reins. So theirs is the financial. Condon is financial as well as capacity, building capacity. So I flagging this for you because one of the discussions that I have already started, and since Catherine is here, we can talk about it more, is whether we might want to look at using part of the old grade school building to increase capacity.
Capacity's got to be an issue in Arlington too.
It is not at this point. They are, they can take at the childcare up to 16 under their license. And we asked, do you have any waiting lists? Are you having any problems with that? No, they can, right now, the way that people's schedules are structured, they are able to get everybody in that they need. And the preschool is okay. They have the pod that the school district provided for them, and they did not, I think they have 11, she said, in their class. I don't know what their capacity is, maybe 16 as well.
Probably more. I mean,
Or
that
20
preschool age, so they're
probably.
20.
Is their staffing capacity is a 1 to 10 for that age group, so they probably could take up to 20. So they're maybe a half capacity. In Condon, the capacity issue is concentrated in the 0 to 3s. So just anecdotally, again, I'm just putting this on the record so the public understands what we're dealing with. Is the preschool right now, apparently she has all of the kids in placed that have submitted enrollment forms. So, but if we have even 2 or 3 kids move in that age group, we will have a waiting list for that group. For the 0 to 3s, for people to understand, there are 8 slots. She has 12 on a waiting list.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, some of those kiddos in the 8 will be aging up into the preschool room, and so that may bring down the waiting list, but I think there will still be at least 9
We still
kids.
need a 20 capacity.
Yeah,
Service.
and so that is basically for state licensure, that is basically a classroom.
Yeah.
10 kiddos of that age group is capacity, 8 ideally for
Well,
babies.
and it's because it's a 4-to-1 ratio in that classroom as well. So if you go to that 10, you have to have a 3rd staff member in there at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so it's a harder issue.
So Catherine and I walked through the grade school building. The old library actually might end up being the best fit, just because it would have direct access into the play shed, and it has a door to the outside that would go directly into the playground. So we're looking at that. I am flagging this because our ARPA dollars actually can be used to provide childcare slots, and they can be used for capital construction. And so I'm putting this on the
We
record.
really haven't earmarked the 370,000.
We have not, other than the amount that we approved to go to Norcore, which was like 6,000 or something. So my intention is to walk through the facility with Catherine and probably Jeff Schott and Janine to look at the different spaces and to figure out which one would work best as a temporary. Ideally, at some point, the center could expand and take up more of the block it's on, but with the current landowners around it, I don't think that that's a possibility. And so what we're looking at is a temporary space, really, that the early learning center could operate another classroom for that 0 to 3 age group out of.
Might be the most difficult location for the existing landowners you could come.
Yep,
Put up.
pretty much.
No, not at all. We've never had any difficulty when I was on the child care board like that ever.
But I just wanted to let you know that that is how my thinking has shifted over time, that maybe that is a good use of our ARPA dollars, honestly. Because it will pay for construction, and especially dealing with childcare. You have to demonstrate that it's serving a potential need of people who are impacted. Families with young children returning to work, that is a huge barrier to them being able to work full time. Anyway, it's still all very preliminary. We'll be doing walkthroughs and trying to figure out what's what, but I wanted to let you know that. And
What's the deadline on the ARPA dollars?
2024,
Ours is gone.
2023. Yeah, I think we've got another 2 years to spend it. So we have time.
But time is of the essence.
Exactly.
Because we have a need that's past due,
Exactly.
so we need to talk and do something.
Contractors are gonna be an issue too, so you want to.
That's true.
Yeah.
We'll lock something in. so we should
The
have.
city did do an assessment of that building. There is asbestos in parts of it. And so my intention would be for us also trying to move expeditiously, doing so in a way that if we can remove some of the things that the city would have to do anyway to make it, to use those facilities down the road, like abating asbestos, for instance, that would be a good use of
And
taxpayer
there's-
dollars.
I keep hearing there's some grants available for that too. So,
There are some.
Yeah.
there?
Brownfield, they call them. or-
Yeah.
So anyway, just wanted to flag that those are moving forward. I am getting on the new superintendent's schedules. I will be meeting with the content superintendent on Thursday afternoon to just talk about what Rocket is, talk about some of the things that we partnered with the school district on previously, Amy's prevention work, some other things, just to kind of start those conversations. We're working on getting on the Arlington superintendent's, the new superintendent schedule as well. But I think he's taking a little bit of time off in July, so it might not be until August before I see him. Let's see. We are having this afternoon our work session on fiber. On tomorrow morning. Yes. Catherine and I are going to be talking to these potential fiber fellows that we talked about to see. So we're just going to be doing a little meet and greet, I think, over Zoom to get impressions of them and see if they're a good fit to come work in Gilliam County. So that is moving forward. Let me see what else I've got. Coming up on the 19th, Frontier Regional 911 will have its quarterly board meeting. Am I missing anything? What else are we working on?
No, I just want to take a second to note the mission statement for the rocket process. Liz nailed that down at the last meeting with them, and it is going to be generate vibrant solutions to expand and stabilize childcare access in Gilliam County, focusing first on children 0 to 5 years old. So that will be the problem that the rocket is going to specifically work on finding solutions for. Cool.
And our hope is that this core group can then, once we've started gaining ground on the 0 to 5, can also hopefully talk about after school care and some of the other gaps that we know exist in the community. But we just felt like
0 to 5 has got to be the most problematic,
Yes.
no matter where you're at or whatever you're doing.
yeah, and in particular, the 0 to 3, the data that they have for Oregon on the number of slots per kid is really like, it's what, 1 to 7?
Yeah, like
For
the
every 7,
entire state is in a childcare drought for that 0 to 3 age group. It's not just.
It's like Hessen.
like for every 7 children age 0 to 3 in the state of Oregon, there is 1 slot of childcare providers,
Oh, my goodness.
is how,
Wow.
and that's pretty close to even in this county. So anyway, huge problem.
Yes.
Glad we're tackling it. Other than that, the only other thing that I just wanted to flag is I will be working on a resolution to come before the court regarding moving the development district boundaries from GEODC to McKed.
Oh, okay.
Both boards, I think, are on board with us making that change, and so they're ready for us to make the formal request.
Yeah.
So that will be coming to us here in the next couple of meetings once I have some capacity to actually draft that piece. We've got a lot going on.
Yes,
Are we
you do.
waiting on my portion?
What's that?
Are we waiting?
On the IT stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are going, just as a heads up for the commissioners, we will be probably in the next meeting and the meeting after that, talking about making some changes to how we're handling our IT.
Okay.
In specifically, I think, just to give you a high level, we would be looking at going more full service on our IT side and freeing up some capacity for Miranda to assist on some of the HR policies and procedures that she has an expertise on.
Yeah. Utilize her skills.
Yes, so that's just giving you kind of the preview. We'll actually have a formal recommendation and start kind of laying out what we're thinking. We would still be contracting with an outside entity to help us with, like, say, disciplinary action investigation, because that was, I think, part of the feedback we heard from elected officials from this court, sort of post Lisa, is that we would like to see that piece be out of
Yes.
house.
Yes.
I think Miranda would be happy to not have to deal with disciplinary action too and investigation. So I don't think there's any objections with her. But I just think based on the skill sets within the staff, it makes some
Yeah,
sense
it's just,
to.
it's just better to
Yes.
get the experts on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Miranda's been looking for us to find who might be able to help us on that piece. So we will have, like I said, a more formal recommendation on both of those pieces. And I also want to take some time to actually walk through that with the elected officials to make sure their comfort level and where we're going before we actually present it to the court. So
Okay.
that is coming. Anything else for the good of the order? Ladies? Okay, if not, it is 11:33. I will go ahead and adjourn the regular meeting. For those who are interested, at 1 o'clock, we will be reconvening for a work session regarding our broadband and fiber project with our consultants to kind of give us an update on where we are. So come back and see us here in like 90 minutes.